It's not that every day is the same, right? Every day brings a new challenge, a new aspiration to work towards, and that's what's keeping me here.
Hi, my name is Sue Quackenbush, speaking to you from our Lint office, and I am welcoming all of you to our next episode of Real Talks. Today's guest is Kristof Randers. He is the Innovation Services Director based in Belgium. So welcome, Kristof.
Awesome to be here, Sue.
You've been here with Dynatrace for 15 years, so congratulations on that milestone, which is amazing. And when you look at your career from individual contributor to people leader, I'd love for you to discuss what really prompted the idea and the desire to go into a people leader role.
Yeah, thank you, Sue, for the celebrations of my 15 years here. It's been quite a journey, right? Dynatrace is not the same company as it was 15 years ago, and it went through a lot of transformation of itself from a technical level through the way that our people and cultural organizations really help drive career growth. It's been amazing. But I really actually loved every single day that I was an individual contributor. Gave me great satisfaction, working with customers, solving their problems, making sure that their problems wouldn't reoccur, right? Driving those long-term relationships with customers was something that taught me an immense amount of, I would say, EQ over the years. And I want to actually spread that knowledge to increase the impact that I could have. And for me, that way to do that was to move into a people leader role.
And then how did you really prepare yourself for that transition?
I will not actually lie. I didn't prepare for that. At one point, I expressed a desire to my leadership, and I said, like, look, I want to try this. Right. So I don't know if it's for me. And I had a lot of great support mentoring me along the way. It was actually after the fact that I started to learn through programs like the elements of leadership that Dynatrace is launching on what it actually means, or to have some knowledge behind the actual practice of being a people leader, that actually grew that aspect of my career even further.
And I love the honesty of like, hey, I didn't prepare, but I put my hand up. And the ability for someone to say, I'm going to go for a different role, which absolutely requires different skill sets and something you hadn't done before. Just making that initial interest in going for it is a big step forward. What raises another question, though, if you knew the team and you were working with the team, and then all of a sudden you were the leader of that team, that's a hard transition to make as well, because sometimes going from, colleague and peer to then manager, some people don't react very well to that. And it's a different way of communicating, so is there anything that really you could give tips on how to make that transition from colleague to manager?
Yeah, I think it if you compare it to what I think the military calls a battlefield promotion, where you're not supposed to lead a team that you were part of, or like a regiment or something like that, I was a little bit worried about that in the beginning. However, I was also certain that the team had a very high level of maturity. I was very lucky with that, right? So the mistake that I made in the beginning was trying to really be that leader. It was like, I had to kind of like make a point, if that makes sense, of like, here I am now. And I think that's where I made a mistake as a leader, because that wasn't necessary at all. Right? So the team was so good at what they did. They didn't need somebody to tell them what to do. They needed somebody that would tell them where are the goals and how that would translate into their day-to-day. That's what they were looking for. As soon as I found that out, and I realized that, again, through mentorship with my leadership as well, once I was able to articulate that and translate that into what the team needed, it actually was a piece of cake from there on.
So what else would you say could give some suggestions and guidance for someone who's also thinking about making that change from individual contributor to a people leader role?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Speaking of my own experience and my own career path, for me, experience is not something that is based out of one data point. So I see a lot of younger people who want to move very quickly, and while I can appreciate that, because you want to see things change and you want to see your career progress. Getting experience, a lot of experience in a particular aspect, whichever field that you're in, is valuable lifelong in your entire career, because you build EQ on how to deal with certain situations and when to take experiences and apply them in the future, or when to say, hey, this experience is maybe not super valuable, right? And maybe it's something that does not apply to the situation in particular. So going to people who have actually gone through a similar path than me, if they come to me and say, can you give me some advice? The biggest thing that I've learned is that you know more than you think. That was my biggest, I would say, constraint when I was thinking about moving into this. Like, well, do I know what to do? How will I deal with all this? But actually, as it turns out, you have a very often, in many cases, a very natural response to things that you have seen in the past, because you have built that experience and you've seen how people react and how situations kind of manifest themselves and how people respond to that. So that for me is the biggest thing, I would say. You know more than you think.
And then when you think about, going into this role, what kind of challenges did you experience making that transition?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, because I'm still dealing with those challenges today, right? I've only been in this role for a limited amount of time. I think the biggest thing is kind of letting go, right? I've built the first major portion of my career was building expertise, right? Becoming a subject matter expert, being seen as an expert in a certain field. And when you move into a people leader role, right? Okay, of course, it's still great to have that backing, to have that baggage to kind of support you in your decision-making process, but you need to trust the people that, you are working with, all right? They will also make the right choices. You focus on what you want the end goal to be of something, but let them make their own path. And that is, for me, is the biggest challenge that I'm still dealing with every day, is try to not get too much involved, because also that doesn't scale.
Well, and I think that not only that is definitely a challenge, not only for a new people leader, but also for many people leaders who have been in the role for a while, right? It's how do you enable, how do you build that trust, and really let your team make them, sometimes make the mistakes that they need to learn from to continue their path and journey forward in learning. And that is a tough one. And I do think a lot of people leaders do, especially with strong expertise and experience, it's hard not to step in and say, do it this way or do it that way. So I know you said you're still figuring it out, but any early lessons learned on how to approach that balance?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky that I managed 3 amazing teams, all with wonderful people that are very good at what they do. All right. So building those teams out, you have to realize that if you're hiring and you're bringing in that talent into your team, that they probably know things better than you, right? And so I got caught up with thinking that I knew more in the beginning, and then I got caught out and said, oh, actually, they actually know what they're doing, right? And making that switch at that point, I was like, well, actually, why am I trying to change this or shape this in a particular way when they are actually the ones that are doing this work? And for me, that was a big aha moment. And now I'm just guiding them in where I think it can go, but I let them make their own roads.
And that is something where that transition really needs to happen. So to be able to be the coach and mentor and enabler versus always giving the answers. So I'd love to hear more about your philosophy on career development and the slow and steady. And you see this in job hoppers sometimes with regards to if they don't feel like they're growing fast enough within a company, they'll jump to another company. But in the end, I'm also a big believer in experience matters. And in order to gain experience, you have to live with something, live with the decisions you've made. And how do you have someone to maybe put the brakes on a little bit and explore further their current role? How do they maximize their current role so that when they get that next level position, they're successful in it, but they also have the true experience depth to pull from?
To me, experience is not a single data point. And going to the job hopper topic, I see that very frequently when somebody says, oh, I've done this. All right, now it's time for the next thing. It's like, well, you've seen one particular instance of what this could be. But as we all know, every situation is different and will require a different approach, will require a different set of skills. So in the end, right, experience is something that you build over a longer period of time. And long-term relationships together with a nice breadth of experience will mean that you can actually leverage that in your career in the long run.
I'd love to understand what has kept you motivated, and really why do you stay at Dynatrace? 15 years within a company is awesome. But like in technology, that is a long time. And I think it's wonderful. And so I'd love to just hear your thoughts about what really keeps you staying at Dynatrace.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been lucky enough to be part of many revolutions and evolutions within Dynatrace. And it's that relentless pursuit of making us a better company tomorrow that we are today, and seeing the opportunities that brought along for myself in my career, but also in the way that we work, made it just super exciting. It's not that every day is the same, right? Every day brings a new challenge and brings a new aspiration to work towards, and that's what's keeping me here. I don't see a reason to go and look elsewhere.
It's wonderful to hear that, every day is a new challenge, a new learning opportunity, and that's what keeps you excited. So, Kristof, thank you so much for your time. It was lovely speaking with you, and I just really enjoyed all your insights.
Thank you, Sue. It was nice to talk to you as well.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's podcast. If you'd like to follow us, please do so on Apple and Spotify.